Shawna, how do you deal with overwhelm, burnout, just life being too much?
The good news is on today's episode, we have Sarah from Soul Collective YYC, who's going to share a little bit about her own journey and how she helps others create space for soul connection, deeper conversation, developing community to live more intentionally.
Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
People tell me all the time that they don't have deep conversation. And they want so much to just go deeper and to just have that kind of access, that kind of deeper space to speak about themselves or about the world. And you end up talking about the weather with a lot of folks, so.
Yeah, people are unsatisfied because we crave that deeper connection.
Yeah, they're craving it all the time. I hear that constantly. So
and maybe you just help them find that deeper connection with themselves first, so that then they can have that deeper connection with others.
Yeah, and the confidence to know that they can, because they've tried it on.
How do you define the soul?
I think, your soul can be everything from how you relate to music, to how you hold the triumphs and the pains of your mother's heart in yours. It's you as poetry, it's you as art. It's how you move through the world, and in the conditioning of how you become human. You've either armored up in that, or perhaps you've become a poet of some kind because of it, depending on your sense of self and your essence. We're predetermined, right? I think parents in a lot of ways, they decide for us, what you will believe, what you will not believe, what you will love, what you will hate. If you're a girl, then be a girl this way and not that way. We're sort of told who to be, and yet there's this spirit inside of us, and each one of us has it. And if you've met twins or triplets, they're nothing alike, like at all. And we chalk that up to potentially personality, but also it's that sense of them. They just have a sensibility. There's a feeling to people. That's a soul.
We're talking about the anniversary of the COVID craziness that shut our businesses down in the States and in Canada.
Such a trigger for this COVID thing, and yet here we are, in 4 years after. And is it too soon to have a small space where we can reflect on how far we've come? And the one thing I've noticed actually in conversations with people around this here and there is, people talk about their experience now as like, oh, well, when COVID, what was it? I was having dinner somewhere, and the lady serving us said, in COVID, I ended up having to pivot, and I couldn't do this job, so then I picked up that job. And these particulars that are in conversation around how people's lives really have changed, but really that forced change, right? You're sort of like, you're just pushed into something else, and so you begin. And sometimes that's actually just exactly how it's meant to be in a lot of ways, and then all of a sudden your life is somewhere else. But yeah, I was actually speaking to, in and around this conversation with my daughter in the car this morning around COVID has a lot to do with just trying to get through something. And then when I had written in my notes to you, Shawna, about getting through that original conversation about injury about 7 years ago, and I went through a really, really bad time. Pelvic floor muscles tore, psoas muscle, my trochanter was completely shifted. It took me like 4 years to rebuild my body, and needed help to go pee kind of level of pain. And that's a really wild place to be. Things go dark very quickly. Mental health becomes the first and foremost, I find, on the docket of conversation when I hear someone has injury. First thing I ask is, well, what are you doing for your mind? Are you okay? What have you put in place for yourself? because lights just go out so quickly. And I was talking about that in the car this morning with my almost 15-year-old, and she was saying, Mom, it's so interesting that you went through that, because she went through a similar thing in her high-level gymnastics about a year ago, and ended up through various channels having to leave her beloved sport. And that was a really painful experience as somebody who is in support, and obviously we're talking about children, but also like just loved ones and people that you want to do well in the world, and you see these amazing skills that they have, and then injury takes over, and they really struggle. And the one thing that I know for sure was that because I went through what I went through, I knew the signs and I knew the symptoms of what was happening for her before she even made mention of it, and really was, quite frankly, fairly ashamed to make mention that things were not okay for her. And it was more about intuitively feeling and understanding that something is not okay, and knowing the measures to put in place right away for her, and I only know that because I went through it. And I'm not going to take on the same people, I call it building a village around yourself, a community of, knowledge, of experts who can help you. That to me is not necessarily far different of a conversation than it could be to talk about COVID, and going through the makeshifts of having to go through something that, in a way, for some people that was a beautiful experience, and for a lot of other people it was not. And it's in this after that we've realized, probably a lot of us, that we've shed a lot of people from our lives. We've also built a lot of people up who are there as our village now, and in the after of it. And the effects of that are fascinating. It's not that I used the experts that I used on myself on her. I got, a youth psychiatrist, sports specifically, to help support her. It's the first thing I did, was put that in place. And then so began the journey of working with, high levels in the world of chiro and physio, and just putting the village together to make sure that she had the support in place, and also women coaches. She needed women in her camp who were fiercely independent and really knew themselves. And so that was my big ask, was to put the feelers out there of who would be somebody who would want to kind of mentor her through this dark time. Not so much a coach that's going to be there and the like, yep, you got this, get back on that, and try that again coach, but the one who actually is going to be there for the basic strength movements, the ones in the rebuilding, where you've just got a dumbbell or you've got a band. And when you go from being high level like that to using a band, that's rough. It just is. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that, because it's an interesting thing to know, and you don't know, and then you do know. And even when you don't know, in a lot of ways, you really have a good sense of what that was for yourself. And it's the only thing we can really do for them, isn't it? To just try.
I think that's one of your gifts, Sarah, is being still and asking people to be still, because at the end of the day, everybody has their own answers, but it's a matter of kind of digging through the weeds and finding the answers.
Yeah. And it's a wild thing, age and wisdom and time. There's a lot of repair in time, isn't there? I mean, sometimes we just need a good dose of time. And yet that just never seems quite the thing when we're going through something. That seems to be the battle we carry. I've found people battle with one of two things. It's either conversation around money, the lack of it, or it's time. We seem to pull our swords for one or the other. And I find when it comes to these rebuilding spaces, if you can sit with time, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, and actually just have a look around you. It doesn't even have to be internal. I was listening to all your podcasts. I quite liked all of them, quite frankly, but Miss Iris had a lot to say about that in terms of, just speaking to yourself. She'd said something like, talk to your body. And that's something I do. Actually, it's a really fascinating thing. I'm jumping all over the place here, but I work out I'm not allowed to work out thanks to, the village that I have around me more than 3 times a week. So I know my limit. And yet I have managed to completely change and transform my body now in the last 2 years into somebody who can compete if I want. I can lift quite a bit of weight now. I've positioned myself as what I realized about myself is that none of this has to do with any genetics. It's really determination. And it isn't just determination, it's time. For me, it's just been about taking the space to rebuild. And every time before I begin a workout, and you can watch me do it. I'm sure they have at the gym. I have 5 elastic bands that I use because I've got a crazy big mane of hair. And I pull my hair. This is just something I do. I call it my rituals. These are my little tiny rituals that I do. And I pull my hair to the back for a ponytail. And I can't just do a ponytail because it's like it's like a horse's tail. So it just whips me in the face. So I've got the first elastic and I put the elastic in and I check in and I just say to myself, we're here. We did it. We came here. And the second elastic I put in my hair and I give gratitude to my body. I just kind of I don't look at myself, but I look at myself. And I just think, how are you feeling today? Where are you at, girl? And then I put the third elastic in and it's more of that sensitivity to, what can I leave behind me now? Can I just be here? And can that conversation end? Can that phone call end? Can I, whatever, we do this thing where we have conversations in our head constantly about conflict and what I was going to tell them, and they better know. And, it's happened 5 hours ago. So, and we do these things. And I think, can I drop this? Can I just let this one, can I leave this here? Maybe pick it up later. And then that last elastic really for me is, and maybe that's a fourth. And the fourth elastic really is just about, kind of ask myself if I have to pee, quite frankly. And then the fifth one is just about taking the time to really just look around me and take a damn breath and be grateful. Like, I have this body that moves. Maybe I move with it. And for me, everything is a space that begins and ends with a deeper and more soulful conversation. And quite frankly, I even bring that into the gym. It's just how I relate to my world.
Sarah, tell me about how that's changed for you versus the old workout days, what that looks like now versus then.
I think, Alli, it's an interesting thing. Time and wisdom's taught me something, and that is that if I don't find play in my day, adulting is all you do. And the one thing that I know for sure about, and even intuition, because my world is working in mindfulness, and I'm what I would consider, I'm self-proclaimed as a soul practitioner. I just try to bring the soul back into every conversation. And that is non-denominational. Your soul can be your sense of determination. Your soul can be your sense of self, trying to figure out who you really are. Your soul can actually just be understanding that trauma exists within you and that that's okay. It's a kind of acceptance. It's an understanding. Don't come out of these childhoods terribly unscathed sometimes. And sometimes we have to carry these masks with us and these difficult, heavier stories alongside us. And you can do the work and you can try as best you can to understand it. And it's a whole other faculty to actually just be with it, if that makes the difference.
Now, have you more recently gotten back into fitness or kind of that journey? Is that? I feel like there's been a shift or a change, if I'm remembering correctly.
So COVID was fascinating, to go back to that original conversation. I took back play because I noticed that 4 years ago when COVID hit, in that duality space, that beautiful, the particulars of how life is, I had this experience which is really around this week, right? When COVID's begun and here we are 4 years later. Everybody sort of cancels, as you do, right? In these situations, first thing that goes is all the scheduled stuff. So cancel. And then people messaging and saying, hey, I don't know what to do. I'm not okay. This is not okay. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So the first thing that I considered was, how can I contribute? How can I give into community so that people might feel like they have something? And so within that first week or two, I started what I call Daily 15. It's just sitting there on Spotify now. It's 15 minutes of various different kinds of meditations, some just mantras, things like that, just sort of statements for the day, just to have people get through them. I probably created over 200 of them, and that was for quite a long time. And it was time when it was time to shed that and sort of let it go. It was very trying in the sense that after a year of that, and after stories, and you're with folks in their stories, and this is what I do. I am with you when you are going through something, and it is really a part of me when you're going through something, and that's where I want to be. That is extraordinary for me. And then in the pulse of all of that, it definitely took its toll, and so burnout kicked in, and I would call it a pretty full burnout. I didn't understand the symptoms of burnout until I read the book, which is actually titled Burnout, written by a set of twins. Beautiful book. That taught me a lot. I saw a lot of what was no longer serving me. And that became a thing of like sitting at my desk 17 hours a day, trying really hard to just be there for others, and figuring out that I didn't know how to be there for myself anymore. I think that this is the age-old tale of many women. And I started to notice, aches and pains and strains in my body. My body was talking to me. It was telling me, you're not okay. This is not okay. My mind was changing, the story of me to sort of like, it's okay, just make it okay, everything's okay, in this sort of like just trying to net everything, and capture it. And essentially just started lying to myself, I think, is really what we do, isn't it? Like, you just have to be okay. I had to be okay for my family. I had to walk into, the main room in my home and find a way to look at them in the eye and say, this is hard, but we're okay. And in fact, we are okay. And as it says in the book Untethered Soul, Michael Singer says, you're okay when you're not okay. You're still okay, to paraphrase. And indeed, we found a way through all of that. But in the interim of it it was deeply eroding in the sense that you give. And I'm definitely one of those folks, a people pleaser and a recovering people pleaser now, and trying very much to kind of stay in the faculty of what must be, which was really keeping my business afloat, making sure that that was all functioning well. And to be very frank, I mean, Iris actually, I gotta bring her up again. Kudos to her. She talked about walking. She walked, and to shed aspects of her depression. She would walk, and walking saved me. Through that burnout experience, sometimes if I was really struggling, I would walk at 3 a.m. Not gonna lie, I would just walk outside long before we got the COVID dog. I was walking in the middle of the night. I was walking in the day. I was walking in the forest across the street from me. I was walking, and I was trying to figure out how to walk myself home. That's what I realize now. But it was in the movement. That was the shift. I would move, and I would come home, and I would feel just a little different. The serotonin hit, that little dopamine, little bit of oxy in the system. The chemicals were moving. Something was moving. And sometimes that would happen, 3 times a day if I could get my hands on it for even 15 minutes, and then back to my desk. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this story. And then so began the journey of deciding that it was time for me to take back some form of fitness. My best friend began her journey of owning a gym, actually a CrossFit gym, but a gym nonetheless, women-led. She was a single mom, and bought that gym through COVID, if you can believe it. So like right when all of that began, she took on that. And I just looked at her and thought, wow, I would really like to support that in some capacity. And so slowly I got like a drop-in pass here and there, and I was quite frightened to start again into that world. And I just wasn't certain of, would I have time? Do I, can I make this work? That all the things we say, it's the first thing that goes is anything on the me list. I'd be like, oh, well, the kids need such and such, so I'll drop that to do that for them. I think we all have these stories. And she began that. And so it felt right to support in some way. And I said, I would really like to support you more. I mean, and she said, well, then become a member. And I was like, oh, no.
Anything but that.
And then all of a sudden, before I knew it, I'd become a member. And I moseyed on over there, here and there, sporadically where I could. And then something just began to click. And I think that thing was remembering me. Like all of a sudden, scheduling that mattered. All of a sudden, the walks weren't enough. I needed more. And I was sort of seeking out community again. I wanted to be in the world again. I wanted to be in person again, even if that felt like risk and me in a mask at the gym, which is wild. I was willing to do it. I was willing to try. I would go to the gym when no one else was there, just so that I could stay safe from my clients, everything I could. I was just sort of like, I think this might be the way for me. And all of a sudden that burnout shifted. In the interim of that burnout, though, I really had to come off of social media. I had to come off of being out there as much as I was in the doing space of community. All of that had to kind of like go away. It's important to note that like you can't do everything. I had to almost give of that space, and then I had to incubate and take some time and go into some stillness for myself and recognize that I needed something too. That's a really tough place to be, don't you find? Because like nobody really wants to, when you are a mom and when you are a woman in the world and the mental load is great and sort of give of yourself, to then choose you is, well, it's a big deal. You're really scheduling it. It's something.
It's easier to take care of everyone else's needs but your own. And it's hard to sit with your own stuff.
It is. Ain't that the truth? Then you really have to look at the things that aren't working.
Yes, and face and maybe make changes where it's okay to prescribe changes to others and take care of little ones and clients because that's them doing the change, and you're just prescribing. It's tough to look at your own stuff. Can I back up a little bit, Sarah? Because when we met each other many years ago at the gym, you were high functioning, and then things went awry. And in addition to all this, mental, these mental shifts and being more intentional, like, did you get some like physical therapy to get you out of pain initially, and then had to sit with it and then do the mental shift and then move back into fitness?
Yeah, I'd say that's quite a process. Like the initial for me was, well, as we do, right? All of a sudden you're in pain. So the first thing you do is, try to figure out who can help you handle that pain. Who are the people in place, and if of course money permits, you gain access to that. And then for some people it might look like, well, I gotta rest, I gotta like lay on my back, or I gotta, for me this was SI and psoas and all pelvic and hip, and just I think probably some injury in the after of pregnancy that didn't get managed properly. And all of that created a perfect storm. I was also doing this thing at that time where I was training quite a bit at the gym that you and I met at, and I was also training on the side for what I hoped to be a marathon. And what I realize now is if I could go back and tell that person one piece of advice I would give her now is make sure you have coaches in place and recognize that you're actually doing two very different things. These are not the same thing. To be working out at the gym and moving your body in that way, and then trying to train for something that's just a completely different set of rules for your body. As a marathon runner, what you doing, girl? ? And I didn't think enough to pay or to access that leadership, to actually find a female coach who maybe would help me zone in on and determine, what should I focus on here? I just, I had a grade 2er at the time, and I had a toddler, a preschooler, and I just thought, like, well, I just got to fit it all in. I just got to figure out how to fit it all in. And I wanted so much to try it all. I'm a person who's very curious in the world. Nothing really stops me. I get very determined. It's got to be the Scottish in me. And I have to try. I got to try, at least try. And then that trying became a place of, probably moving into kind of self-determination or trying to prove something to myself. And then, of course, that moves into a competitive mode. Not a great recipe to have if you're trying to wear the cape and have the dinner ready and do all this and run a business and, too much. It was too much. And you only see this in the rearview mirror. It's a beautiful thing, a rearview mirror effect, isn't it? It's divine. And yet at the time, I was just doing my best, as it were. The wisdom now says, find someone who can help you determine what are you at your best, where are your skills best suited, and do that first, and then step in and be that determined person and the motivated one and the I can do it all thing, but within the faculties of somebody somewhere who's actually, such as yourselves, who's actually really using their skill sets and their expertise to elevate you. It's not a one-man band, that kind of world. It just isn't. And we need support, and we need women in place. And, we paved the way for each other. And that's something that I've learned over all of these years, is now I've become that for many. And also I have them too. It's really important to, that is non-negotiable for me, my village, my community. That is absolutely how it works. And I didn't realize that until I needed it, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how it went down is injury happens, as it does. You could probably talk about this in burnout too. And then everything goes dark. Like, it was just dark days. I probably went through a phase where I was like, vodka will do the trick, realizing very quickly that doesn't do the trick. Oh, what about these ibuprofen? Can't take enough of those. Wow, was not taking the edge off. What do I do about that? And recognizing that, I'm just not a person who pill pops. I'm not really a person who uses, outside sources necessarily, but, desperation calls in all kinds of things. And before that became an out of hand situation, I knew that I had to kind of just shut that down right away and figure out my own mind in determining how to sit with myself and sit with that pain, and through the tears and through the anguish and through the anger at myself, more than anything, I think, is what really showed up for me, is that I felt like I had betrayed myself. Like I'd tried to do it all, and, this whole kind of martyry, victim-y role of like, well, I tried, and, the boo-hoo of that. And yes, it was really important to go through that. And I owned those emotions, and I owned that time frame of feeling really, not just sorry for myself, but actually really, really angry with how I had managed to get there, because it had somehow just set me back. And, how have I gotten here, kind of thing, blame, shame, as we do. And then moving in and through that, it became a sense of course, you go through the interim of a little bit of denial, like, no, I can do this, it's okay. And then quickly moving into, okay, who are the people that are going to actually support me in this? And just starting to try. I just started to try to figure out chiropractor specialists, movement specialist, everything. And it wasn't until a woman I saw downtown who was marvelous, movement specialist, she said to me, I think you're ready for Pilates. And I said, whaties? I've never tried that before. I'm not terribly a yoga person. I was in my 20s, went through that kind of thing, but I've never really been that person, which is a surprise to a lot of people. But I'm much more of a like weightlifting, boxing kind of girl. That's where my energy moves. That's how I can get stuff out of me. And yeah, I'd never tried it before. And she said, I think it's probably time. We did a few little bits, pieces, exercise, and I have never done anything more difficult in my life than these tiny, tiny movements of Pilates with the ball on the ground and a mat. And it was extraordinary and extremely painful. And then slowly, slowly, that began to save my life. It was actually really Pilates that staged everything for me of, oh, I can maybe do this again. Oh, I could actually maybe touch my toes again. Oh, wow, look at that. I can get up without being on my hands and knees first. And then doing this big, like, push off the ground. I could actually sort of get up in one movement. These slow abilities began to show up. And really all of that, I think, would look like, these isolated movements and stretching.
Don't you think, Sarah, sometimes that when we are doing too much, that we just need to slow?
Totally.
We need to slow when we're burnout, when we're over, because I know I see this with clients, and I'm sure Shawna the same, where especially when someone wants to lose weight, they're going to try to, I want to work out 10 times a day, every day. And I just need to do more, because I want results. And what I hear you saying is that that's a lot. And sometimes we need slow is the answer.
Yeah. And a sense of determination. Like, I haven't gotten to where I am where I can, look in the mirror necessarily. And I always have been proud, and I have, my body moves. Isn't that extraordinary? I've always been grateful for that. But now I'm in a place where I can lift a lot, and I can move a lot of weight around, and I can compete. And that's a neat place to be. So it's all none of that is genetics. All of that is determination.
It was really you slowing down so that you could speed up, and pulling in the mindful intentionality of that probably was exponential, and will hopefully prevent that from happening again, where you just get on this treadmill of go, 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 go.
Yeah, I don't ever play that game anymore. I cap things at 3 days a week. This week I wasn't feeling great. I had a bit of a cold, so no gym.
Yeah.
It's exactly the right recipe for me. I'm not going to try to force myself into things. I certainly am not going to be a super spreader for people either. And, just this kind of place of ease. I want to live my life with ease, but I also want to play, and even on the recess on the playground, if you go back to those days when you weren't feeling very well, you weren't up to it, you weren't just running around like a mad woman then, and maybe taking it more easy, or, playing in the puddles on the side, which I was always doing. Or, when you're feeling good, then you're on the monkey bars. And that's kind of the philosophy I try to carry with me now. When I'm feeling good, then I'm in, and I'll play tag. Yeah, let's go, But if I'm not, I'm trying my best to learn rest. And quite frankly, I have a teenage daughter that's staring at me all the time. I mean, they do. They just watch you constant. It's wild. And so I have to be the example. And if I want to teach my children rest, then I sure as hell have to know what rest is. And rest is really tough.
Yes.
Because we are a byproduct of culture, and culture says if you are not doing, then you are not productive, and your productivity is your worth.
So how do you think that COVID affected all that? Because I think I remember you calling it the great pause.
Great pause. Yes, indeed it was. It was a beautiful thing to take some time and look around. I mean, in a lot of ways, for some people, they looked around and went, holy, I don't know if I want to do this anymore in this way. And that's okay too. People had to, isn't it amazing that how quickly we went back to things just the same? And a lot of people said they wouldn't.
It's unfortunate that, busy is so glorified.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's that word. I often try not to use it in my vocab. It does come up. I hear myself say it here and there, or I'll do oh yeah, so we're so busy. And then I kind of like stop myself, and I'm like, nope, don't say it, Sarah. That's not the word you want to use. And I'll be like, we're trying out lots of things. Spring is coming.
Yeah.
Redirect the conversation. But that word busy is like, it's a shutdown word. You might as well say, no, I don't want to have a conversation with you. The second you say you're busy, oh yeah, we're so busy, like it's this badge of honor. People think, well, you don't have time to talk to me then. Oh, well, that's sorry to bother you for a conversation. You're obviously busy. And then we shut down connection, and then you wonder why you're not kind of moving through the world in that deeper way, or that kind of more intentional way. Well, it's because probably the word busy is in your vocabulary and you're using it as a tool.
And we're feeling so socially isolated, and we continue to play into that by glorifying our busyness. And I like the way you've positioned that as being, it really shuts people out because people are less willing to reach out if they think, oh, they don't have time.
It's a nuance. We just say it, right? It's just part of, especially with moms, you hear it. I hear it a lot, conversation off the playground, etc. And honestly, we don't really know how else to say it because it's like it's a word of it feels as if it might be a connective word, like, oh, they'll understand. So busy, that kind of thing. But really, if you're mindful to it, it's sort of like a improv skit where they say the number one rule of improv is don't say no. If you're up there on stage, and really busy is a word that's a no. And so it's like, okay, well, I guess have a nice day. If you're busy, off you go then.
I'll let you go. You got lots to do. Doesn't include me.
Yeah.
Go have your life.
Yeah, it's tricky, and it's not a conscious thing. People are just trying their best.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out how to be in the world. And the other thing too is sometimes we're saying busy to like, don't talk to me. I think that's the thing too, is like, actually I am busy, so gotta go. And that's just being honest.
What would be your best piece of advice to our listeners who want to get to the place of living more intentionally, honoring themselves in the busyness of their chaotic life, where women are sandwiched between, their children, their parents? They're a whirling dervish of, like, there's just a lot going on. And I know there is in your life as well, but somehow you're waking up with your hand on your heart and finding space for you most days. Yes. I mean, this is your overall, like, this is who I want to be. How does a woman get from whirling dervish to a better place of quiet and stillness and still, be a powerful woman in the world?
I think, first of all, you can't do it necessarily alone. I think it takes a community of others who understand, and finding community. And, maybe someone like me, maybe someone like you, Shawna, or you, Alli, where they determine the thing that means the most to them, and it's a really easy thing to know on a list of what you don't want. And, oh man, is it hard to know what you do want, especially as a woman. We will do everything in our power, I find, to make sure that all of the people around us have gotten what they need. And that is a want for us, is to make sure they're okay. That matters. It matters deeply. But what about you? So for me, my kind of way of being in the world is knowing that every day is unique. I end my days with my son saying, he's 12 now, so I hope he's okay with me sharing this, saying the Maya Angelou poem, which is today was a good day. And then he says to me, there's no other like it. And we try to end our day that way. And then in the morning, I before my eyes even wake up, I try my best to just feel where I'm at, whether that be actually just feeling the sheets, feeling, it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be mindful. It doesn't have to be in some vein of some kind of spiritual practice. It can actually just be like, oh, my nose, and just scratching your nose. But notice you are scratching your nose. Notice where your fingertips are moving under your pillow. It enhances all aspects of how you begin your day, to just notice. So for me, I try to take on the staging of being the witness. That's what I call it. We can have 3 aspects to us. Of course, there's ego, and that drives most things, good and not. Ego is not that sense of like, walking into the room and your head's too big for your body. None of that. Ego is the persona and the personality. It's the quick whipped jokes. It's the trying to backpedal out of something. It's the one who says, I don't think that's a good idea, because 5 years ago we did it this way. Ego always brings you the past to offer you ideas for the future. It doesn't really know what presence is. Not really. It wouldn't understand that. That's not its job. And soul is presence. So for me, it's that aspect of presence is just being with. It's an honesty to just knowing that you have a heartbeat and you are here. So to take on all of that would be for me just looking at myself as a witness, just being in my life without predetermining. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to like decide that, I haven't woken up right. Or, sometimes it's just my right pajama leg is all bumfled on one side, and I'm like, oh, look at that. So, but I'm noticing it as opposed to just stepping into autopilot, just like the get up and go thing. I notice. And I find once I started doing that, that's when things really began to take on a new shape in my mental health and in how I determine my decisions. There's a natural, slower movement and pace and almost ritual to everything if you can just take a second to notice it first before just being reactive and in it all. Your life is happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening. And can you notice your breath in it? Can you notice where, the middle finger on your right hand right now, what is it touching? Just notice. And then notice your breathing and how it changes because of it. And
one of the things that I know we say so much, and I hear this so much, and I say it myself, is how, and the older we get, how much faster life just passes us by. Time flies. And so, wow, like just noticing things, it changes that pace.
It down. Yeah. Hopefully. Wouldn't that be a lovely thing? It does. It feels so much faster. It feels, as we get older, doesn't it? And I know when the children are little, I was told that, the days were long. Yes, at times, but the years are short. And I find that too for myself sometimes is that, I look up and it's already, here we are in March and we're moving through this year. And wasn't it just New Year's? And, so we, and that's the thing about it is if you're not going to celebrate you and take the time for these things, who the hell is? What? Like what? Who's going to do that?
What's the point? Yeah. 100%.
It'd be a lovely thing, wouldn't it, to have a parade for ourselves? And yet that's just not how it works. And so I try my best to parade for other people and, be in the world where if I see somebody that I know in that sense of I see that they are really building or really creating something or really trying, I will say, I see you. I see how you're trying. I see what you're doing there for yourself. And that's beautiful. If we just sort of noticed each other, it could really reshape something.
If you had a wish for our listeners to leave them with today, what would it be?
Ooh, a beautiful wish. My wish would be for each of you to take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes in your day to just notice you. An incredible, beautiful, capable, feeling soul, spirited human who is trying in the world. And I know sometimes it can feel like there is a lot piling up and so much on our plate, and we want so much to do all the things, and all of that can be celebrated, and also we can lose ourselves in it. And I find the way for me to keep myself is in the tiny, tiny little pieces of confidence. And so that's my wish for you, is that confidence isn't built in one go. It's built in tiny, tiny little fragments of things, sometimes in shattered glass of our hearts that could not be, and then we rebuild them. And confidence is built there in the tiny, tiny bits and pieces. And that's my wish for you, is don't forget the little things. They matter too.
Nice. Yeah, my wish would be to just slow down a little bit and we spoke about COVID because we were reminiscing about the time that it was 4 years ago, the start of it. And that, in so many ways it was a gift because it did require us to slow down and maybe just to think about, the gift of what slowing down means. And even if it's for 5 minutes, I think, as you said, there can be a real gift in that and growing in that.
These are ways that we can play. That's play.
Yeah.
And that would be my wish, is that we play more.
Yes.
I love to play.
So good at that. I love that about you. That's just the best. Yeah. Yeah, you're always my inspiration for play. It's crazy.
And before we say goodbye, Shawna, I know we have a shout out. Can you tell us about our shout outs?
Oh, I just wanted to shout out to Kathy Soroff, who's also local to Calgary, coincidentally, who is always pumping us up and commenting on our episodes. Actually, Sarah, you would know Kathy. And thanks, Kathy, for helping spread the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast with your friends, and for all your support.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.